Hello CraftDee family, and welcome to another tutorial by She's So CraftDee. For today's DIY project, we will be creating these beautiful window frame style shells with an iron look design in the panes. Now these were so much fun to make, and they can be made in any color or stain that you love to fit your style. Now as always, all of the projects I create have the complete supply list in the description box, so you can easily use it for reference as you gather up your supplies. Now, I'm so very excited to share this tutorial with you, but before we start, I have to say hey to all of my subscribers, and if you're a new visitor to my channel today, I hope you do consider subscribing as well, and stick around to enjoy seeing all the different ways to paint and customize these in your space. So now, let's jump right into the project. Now for this project, we're going to need 1 pack of these paint stir sticks from Lowe's for 98 cents. We're going to need a 1x2 piece of wood, and these are sold in 8-foot lengths at the Home Depot for about $1.78. We're also going to need a 1x4 piece of wood, and these are also sold in 8-foot lengths at the Home Depot for about $3.78. And we'll also need some 1/4-inch irrigation tubing, and this is sold in the plumbing aisle at the Home Depot, and you can get this in 50-foot and 100-foot rolls starting at about $4. Now what we're going to do is start off with our wood, and we're going to need 2 pieces of our 1x2 cut at 22 inches, 2 pieces also cut at 9 inches. Now for our paint stir sticks, we're going to cut 2 pieces at 10 inches, cutting off that handle. And we're also going to take 3 sticks and cut them into 6 4.5-inch pieces. Now for our 1x4, we are going to cut 2 pieces at 12 inches. So now that all our wood is cut, go ahead and gather all of it up, protect your work surface, and we will be staining this project. Now, I love to use my Jacobian stain by Minwax, but you can use any paint or stain that you like. Now I'm going to start with the longer pieces, and I'm just going to go ahead and apply an even coat of that stain over all of the surfaces of the wood, including the ends. Now I like using the rag so I can apply the stain and wipe it off at the same time, but if you use a brush or paint stirrer or anything like that, you want to make sure you wipe off any excess, and this is what one stick will look like. So now just repeat this for your other stick until both are fully stained, and then we can do our 9-inch pieces. And then after those are done, we are going to do our 12-inch pieces. And then we can go ahead and stain both sides of our paint stir sticks as well. Now for those pieces you cut off the end of the paint stir sticks, I'm going to take a few of those, and what I want to do is stain those as well, because I will be using these to bond the window panes together. So now that everything is stained, you want to allow it to completely dry. So now that everything is dry, we're going to gather up all of our pieces, and we can start the assembly of our shelf project. So I'm going to take the 2 long 22-inch pieces and 2 of the 9-inch pieces, and I'm going to sandwich them in between those 2 long pieces to form our frame's shape. Now I'm going to bond these together, and I am going to be using a wood stick hot glue, but you could definitely use a regular wood glue for this. And I'm just using my wood stick hot glue for that quick grab. Now I will be following up this project with screws, but this provides that quick grab I need to hold the frame together until I can secure it with a solid bond. Now once those 2 pieces on the ends are bonded together, go ahead and add that top portion, and now our frame is bonded at all 4 sides. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and grab our screws to complete this together. What we're going to do is grab some number 8 2-inch screws for this project. Now before we screw everything in, we do want to drill pilot holes, and I'm using a 7/64 inch drill bit, and I'm going to drill a hole in each corner. Now if you do have a Kreg pocket hole tool or brad nailer, please feel free to use those tools as well to bond these together. And then once all of our pilot holes are drilled, we can go ahead and add our screws into each one of those corners. And now our frame has all the screws in it, and you could touch these up with paint at the end, but our frame is now nice and solid. So we want to go ahead and set that to the side, and we want to grab all of our paint stick pieces to start working on our window paint. So I'm going to take those two 10-inch pieces and bond the flat sides together. You do want to make sure while you're bonding these together that the number side of your paint stir stick is facing you, which will be the back. So I did have a craft stick I had sitting to the side that was already pre-stained. You can go ahead and stain this in the beginning if you want to, but I'm using that craft stick to bond the center together to make one long stick for the center. Now once that center is joined, we are going to tape it down to the grid mat because we want to make sure it stays absolutely straight during the section where we put our panes into place. And now we're going to take our 4.5-inch pieces, and we first want to place 2 pieces on each side of that center, and then we're going to space these apart 4 inches, making sure the edge of that paint stir stick overlaps the center by only about 1/4 inch. Now we could have left our paint sticks whole to do this, but the handle would be showing in the project, and this was the best way I could figure to do this with paint stir sticks without that happening. So now that those are all designated in their positions, we are going to secure them together with a little bit of my wood stick hot glue as shown here, just making sure that we do overlap at about 1/4 inch along the center. Now once we do that first side, we're going to repeat this on the other side as well. Okay, so now that everything is nice and bonded together, we are going to take those patch pieces that we stained, and this is what we're going to use to bond the center of these sticks together so there's not a gap. And this does provide a little bit of extra security as well. So we're going to add one in the center over that gap to make sure they're secure. And as you can see here, our window pane piece is nice and solid. So now we're going to take our frame, we're going to place it face down, and we're going to place our window pane sections right on top of the back. And as you can see, each side overlaps the edge, so it's the perfect cut size. Just add a little bit of hot glue or wood glue along the edges, and then we're going to place that window pane right in the center, just making sure each side is overlapped equally, and that way you'll make sure all your panes are nice and even. Now once that initial bond is done, go ahead and flip it over, take a look. It is nice and centered and everything looks good. So we are good to go here. Now for added security, I love to take my staple gun and I'll go around and staple the edge of each one of those paint stir sticks that overlaps the frame into place. And this just makes sure that this piece is not shifting out of place nowhere. Okay, sit to the side, and we are going to grab our irrigation tubing. So now I'm just going to take a piece, and I want to measure out a piece about 8 inches. Now we're going to go ahead and cut that 8-inch piece off. This looks like the piece we'll be working with mainly. So what I want to do is I want to cut a bunch of them, and I'll end up cutting 14 of these 8-inch pieces for this project. Now we will also need some for the corners, and so we'll need 4 4-inch pieces for the project. Okay, so we're going to flip that frame over with the good side down. Now before we add our tubing, we're going to have to mark the back, the center of each one of those squares. So what we're going to do is take our ruler and mark the center, which should be the 2-inch mark on all 4 sides of each one of those window pane squares. Now this is very important. I'm just using a chalk pen to do this, but once you do this, this will provide the perfect guide for you to apply your tubing and make sure that your design will be symmetrical when it's all applied. Okay, now that our marks are made, you can go ahead and grab any clips or clamps that you may need to hold it in place, but I like to give those tubes just a little bend because these are really flexible. And the first tube, as you can see, is going to be bonded at those 2 marks at the bottom of the frame. So what I'm going to do is add a line of that hot glue right underneath that line in the middle and on the inside of each one of those lines on the sides. And then I'm going to arch that tube all the way around, just making sure it's in alignment with those marks, and just kind of hold it in place for about 5 seconds or so until that it's nice and bonded. And then we're going to take a second 8-inch tube. We're going to do the same thing right next to it, just keeping in mind that that window pane is going to be the center of that arch, and that'll maintain the alignment throughout. Now what we're going to do is complete 3 of these arches on each side as shown here. There's going to be 3 along the top and there's going to be 3 along the bottom. So now we're going to take an additional 8-inch piece and we're going to make an arch in the center as shown here. So we're going to go ahead and add that glue along those marks the same way, and then we're going to add that tubing along that arch as well. Now what I did notice is as I was bonding this together on the center arches, it ended up being just a little bit too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip off about 1/2 inch off the tubes for the center, because we want a blank side on the other side of that tube so we can match an adjoining tube on the other side. So keeping this in mind, I am going to trim down that 8-inch tube about 1/2 inch off each side, just making sure we keep uniformity here, and then adding some hot glue on each end and then bonding that into place, and it kind of forms a circle in the middle. Now this is what it looks like, and we want to repeat this on both sides of the center circle. Okay, so now we have this design so far. Everything is looking great. So what we want to do now is add an arch at the bottom or side of the frame, however you look at it. And we're going to take one of those 8-inch pieces and we're going to arch over that center as shown here. So we're going to go ahead and trim off some of that tubing just to make sure it fits nice and well. And we're going to align it with those lines. Go ahead and add your hot glue to those lines just like we did before, and then place that arch right on the side. Now we're just going to press and hold this into place until it's bonded, and then once it is bonded, we have that one arch on the side. And once that's done, just flip your frame around, and what we're going to do is do that again on the other side, adding another arch on that side for uniformity. Okay, so now those arches are added on each side as shown here. So our final step is to do the corners, and this is where our 4-inch tubes will come into play. So I'm just going to give them a little bend, and then I'm going to place it right in the corner, just joining itself up with the 2 ends of the existing tubes that are already there. So just add your hot glue at those corners, and then you could just easily place that 4-inch piece into place, and there's no trimming necessary. And once that first one is done, just repeat that for the remaining 3 corners. And here are all of our pieces all nice and bonded into place, and the design is complete. So once it is complete, just go ahead and add an additional bit of hot glue at all the seams. This is just for added security. I love to make my project super sturdy. And then after that, I like to follow up with a staple gun, just making sure that those tubes are nice and secure to the frame, and you'll know they are not budging and going anywhere. And here is everything all glued and stapled to the back of the frame, and it's nice and secure. Now when you flip it over, everything looks flawless and seamless. Okay, set your frame to the side, and we're going to work on the shelf portion. So grab your 2 12-inch frames, and we're going to be bonding these down the center. So I'm going to add some wood glue, followed up with a little bit of wood stick hot glue for that instant bond along that side section, and then bond the 2 planks together. Just press them firmly until they're initially bonded. And once they're bonded, go ahead, and this is what they'll look like. So we're going to flip it over to the back side, and this is where I'm going to add some additional support. I had an extra paint stick sticking around, so I'm going to just trim this down about 1/4 inch off the edge so it doesn't overhang. And once I trim that down, what I'm going to do is lay that right across that center seam on the bottom side of the shelf. So again, I am going to take my wood glue, add a seam of that along with more of my wood stick hot glue, and I'm going to bond that paint stick right down that center seam, and this will add additional support to the shelf. And then I'm going to follow up, just touch it up with a little bit of that same Jacobian stain to blend it in. And once that's blended in, follow up with some 3/8 inch staples, and I'm adding 4 or 5 staples along that seam just to make sure that it's nice and bonded and secured together. Now you can use screws for this as well. Now once that does dry, we're going to add our frame to our shelf to the frame, and we're going to align that shelf with the top edge of the bottom of the frame as shown here. So we're going to start by adding a line of that wood glue along the side of the shelf, along of course with some of that hot glue for an instant bond, and then press it along the top of the bottom of your window frame until that bond sets. And once that bond has a firm set, we can just go ahead and flip over the entire frame, and we're going to be securing these with screws. Now to secure the shelf, I'm going to be again taking my 7/64 inch drill bit, and I am going to be drilling 4 pilot holes along the back of the shelf to put 4 screws in, and that should be definitely sufficient enough to place any decor, plants, vases, or whatever you choose to put on your shelf. And once those 4 holes are drilled, I'm going to take some 1.5 inch to 1 3/4 inch wood screws, and I'm going to apply 1 in each one of the holes. Now I always like to start by hand threading them in, because you do want to make sure that they go straight into the wood, and that way the security will be enhanced because it's not poking out of the other side of the wood. Okay, so once all 4 screws are into place, this is what it will look like. And as you can see, now the shelf is nice and secure to your window frame. So now we're just going to flip it over to the back. Now the back of my project does stick out a little because of our iron look design. So what I did is I took 2 jingle blocks and I glued them together. These are the Dollar Tree tumbling blocks, and this is just to give it a little bump out so the iron part won't touch your wall. And this is an important step. You kind of want it to stick away from your wall so your planter shelf or your window shelf will hang evenly. So I'm just going to glue a double stack in each one of the top and bottom corners. Now if you don't have the blocks on hand, you can use scrap wood, anything that butts it out just enough, maybe a 1/2 inch or so, so your iron design will not touch your wall. And I'm putting this in all 4 corners of the back of the frame. And then once that's done, we are going to add our hanger. So I'm using some of this hanger wire. You can get this from the Dollar Tree or any hardware store. And I'm also using some of these 3/4 inch tiny screws that I will use to hold the wire in place. Now you really don't have to drill any pilot holes for this, since this is a very small screw. But we do want to start by screwing these in about halfway into the back of the frame, making sure they're spaced at least 5 or 6 inches apart. Now once you screw each one of those screws halfway in place, you'll notice that they do stick out a little bit, and that is perfect for this step. So now we're going to take our wire, and what we're going to do is wrap it around each screw a couple times and then twist the end of the wire around itself to secure it in place. Now once you do that for the first screw, you're going to make sure you have enough slack in your wire, and then you're going to wrap that around a few times as well and twist the ends together. And now we can go ahead and secure the screw into place all the way as far as it'll go. And now your piece has a hang wire and it is ready to hang. And here is the final finished project, and I am loving how this window shelf turned out. Now this beautiful stained wood looks so great in this project, and it perfectly fits into my home decor. And we can't forget the star of the show, this irrigation tubing, which I absolutely love to use in my DIYs. Now this piece is super sturdy and it's ready for your vases, plants, or other decor that you may have in mind. You all have to let me know if you love this rich color of the stain, but you can also stain a lighter color or paint as well. Now if you love the light and airy look, how about a bright white window frame shelf piece? Now I do think that this is a great option as well, and it definitely gives me the farmhouse style vibes. Now if you do purchase the tubing, no worries about the leftovers. I have several DIYs that I've used this tubing in, and I will provide the full list of them in the description box below. Now you all have to let me know in the comments, which style would you use in your home? Listen, if you love DIYs on a budget, please give this video a thumbs up and share this video with your friends. Make sure that you're following She's So Crafty EE on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok for the latest news, sneak peeks, and giveaways. Now, if you like videos like these and don't want to miss the next one, make sure you're subscribed by clicking that subscribe button below, or just click on my She's So Crafty logo on your screen and make sure you hit that bell to be notified when my next video goes live. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.